Well, time to eat crow, boys. I was wrong and you were right. The YouTube comment section, for once in your life, give yourselves a big round of applause. Everybody who's been skeptical of Bill Gates this whole time, I bet you're giving yourself just take a victory lap, okay? You get this one. These new allegations coming out on Bill Gates are so crazy, and it made me realize that I've been giving this guy a pass for too long based on his philanthropy work, which has laundered his reputation and ingratiated himself to a lot of people, including myself, who kind of saw him as just this lovable grandpa. Yeah, that turned out to be kind of a bunch of nonsense, as we'll find out in a second here. But here's me. I said, Bill Gates is canceled. And basically, it's a piece defending Bill Gates and saying, you guys got him all wrong. He's a lovable philanthropist. How much I have changed in the last 6 months, boys. How much I have soured on Bill Gates. Let me tell you, it's all because of the Epstein stuff. Watching this Epstein case come out and watching Bill Gates repeatedly lie over and over again, it made me realize there's not a good piece documenting these lies. Just lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. And because it was what convinced me to take a second look on old Billy Boy, I thought I'd share it with you because you might not be aware of how much Bill Gates has lied and tried to basically underplay his relationship with Epstein, arguably the worst person of the 21st century, the worst billionaire. Now, I'm not making this video saying all the comments saying that he's microchipping people. I'm not saying y'all are right, but what I am saying is that Bill Gates, he's not a lovable grandpa. No, actually, he was friends with for as long as he possibly could be until the PR just looked too bad for him. And then it seems like he tried to distance himself very poorly. And now it's cost him his marriage, and it may cost him his entire public reputation. And we're going to talk about it right now. We know traditionally you hang out with these kinds of people, chances are you got sticky fingers somewhere. So let's go through the evidence. We'll stick to the Epstein story because that's what's interesting to me.
In the latest fallout connected to Jeffrey Epstein, MIT is opening an investigation into its ties to the financier and convicted sex offender.
A journal citing several people reporting that one source of concern for Melinda, a global advocate for women and girls, was Bill's dealings with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
He also has one of the largest, most established foundations on his own.
Yes.
Why would they ever set up a charitable trust benefiting Jeffrey Epstein?
So let's start this web of lies with the first time it was announced that Bill Gates may have had something to do with Jeffrey Epstein. What did he say?
New York Times sheds light on the connection between Microsoft founder Bill Gates and the late Jeffrey Epstein. After Gates' name came up in connection with Epstein and MIT Media Lab, Gates gave a statement to the Wall Street Journal where he insisted he did not have any business relationship or friendship with Epstein.
All right, so no business relationship or friendship. You hear that? Nothing. This man's never seen the man, never met him. But oops, it looks like the New York Times found an email from Bill Gates talking about Epstein the first time they met, which is weird because apparently they had never met before. But he apparently praised Epstein, saying his lifestyle is very different. That's one way to put it. And kind of intriguing. That's really weird. Although it would not work for me, Mr. Gates emailed colleagues in 2011 after their first get together with Mr. Epstein. Now, bear in mind, of course, it's important to note, it was known at this time Epstein's misdoings. He had already been charged with solicitation of a minor, so that's really important. This is after the fact. Gates meets with him. So, okay. What do? Now, at this point, a spokesperson from Bill Gates told the Times that Bill Gates regrets ever meeting Epstein, noting that was an error in judgment to do so and at odds with Gates' personal values. So now we're led to believe that maybe he only met him one time. So, okay, here they make it sound like it was just a one-off meeting, a chance meeting, a mistake. He never did it again, right? Oops. Once again, according to the New York Times, Gates actually met at least 3 times in the guy's Manhattan townhouse, once staying late into the night. Does this sound like somebody who's not your friend? You know, you're hanging out with them all night. Does this sound like just a casual meeting of the minds? Only 3 times, guys. Only 3 times. Well, okay. So Bill Gates, they go, okay, maybe we did that. Maybe we met with them more than once. But hey, I never went to Florida with him. See, according to a report from the Wall Street Journal this time, we hear from Bill Gates. He says, I may have seen him a few times, but according to him, I met him. I didn't have any business relationship or friendship with him. I didn't go to New Mexico or Florida or Palm Beach or any of that, guys. But okay, he says he's never been to Florida, right? Oops. In a piece that is actually defending Bill Gates, we find that Bill Gates has lied once again. See, according to flight logs, Gates flew on an aircraft of Epstein's once, but this was to Florida. This is the place that he said he's never been. Never been to Florida. Actually, yes, it turns out maybe we did go to Florida. Hey, maybe one time. Florida, yes. Florida, yes. But what's the new lie? Oh, Mr. Gates apparently, who owns his own $40 million jet, hadn't been aware that it was Mr. Epstein's plane. This man, serial liar here. And he continues to deny and minimize and, I don't know this guy. Never met him. What? Who? This is the stuff that pisses me off and has made me totally rethink this man. But that was where the story pretty much lied until this Bill and Melinda Gates marriage kerfuffle. As you guys probably know, they got divorced. Very sad. We don't celebrate divorce here. So that's very sad to see. But what has come out of it has been very interesting in the Gates-Epstein relationship. Because several reports, if you've been following, about Bill Gates have come out. A lot of them with anonymous sources, which a lot of people are uncomfortable with, and I'll give you guys my take on that. Now, before we go any further, let me just kind of lay where we are with you with relation to the, what's been happening. Because all this bad PR has been coming out right after the divorce, and people are confused. Why? Why now? Where are these sources coming from? Well, many people, including myself, suspect the Melinda Gates PR team of releasing this data or releasing these sources sort of silently. And there's a lot of kind of good reasons for that. I mean, usually in an acrimonious divorce like this, you may see them both playing PR games. Like if you go onto Twitter right now, you'll find hundreds of people talking about Melinda Gates has the PR team royals think they have. What are the odds Melinda Gates' PR team drops new pictures of Bill Gates and Epstein before the end of the month? Most people are speculating that it's that divorce team, and that's actually why we're seeing these reports come out. Here's Sagar from The Rising. I think they usually have good takes. They also kind of have this theory.
Now, this is likely leaked from Melinda Gates' divorce team, so take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, it's probably is. And I do think that's worth saying that you probably do need to take it with a grain of salt. But why do we think this? Well, it's because these news outlets like the Wall Street Journal, the Daily Beast, the New York Times, all of them are running massive bombshell stories with anonymous sources. And you wouldn't run stories this big against somebody as powerful as Bill Gates unless the sources were really good. As someone who sort of had to deal with the problem of anonymous sources before, I've kind of had to grapple with how do you vet an anonymous source for your audience? And what you find out is you actually sort of have to be more careful with anonymous sources, not less careful, because if it turns out wrong and it turns out that anonymous source is lying, then it makes you look really bad. It makes you look horrible. So before doing this reporting, my guess is that these papers did their due diligence and they found out, okay, they're from the inside scoop. I mean, they have the inside story. A lot of them are citing it as people familiar with the matter. Okay, who's familiar with Bill and Melinda Gates' marriage? Who's more familiar than Melinda Gates or a spokeswoman for Melinda Gates? And they're never going to come out and say it out loud, obviously, for obvious reasons. It's a bad look. So instead, it's sort of leaked to the presses, etc. But with that context of where these sources are coming from, and also you should take it with a grain of salt, as well as realize that it probably is coming from a source who probably does know what they're talking about. Let's talk about what they figured out. The biggest report comes from the Daily Beast, saying Jeffrey Epstein gave Bill Gates advice on how to end toxic marriage, sources say. There's that sources say again. I think it probably should be read Melinda says. It's just my opinion, purely my speculation there. But what's really important about this is once again, we find out that we've been lied to again. Because after years of saying that they were not friends, yes, they may have met 3 times. Yes, they may have, stayed late. we now find out that the billionaire met Epstein dozens of times, which is many times more than previously reported. Previously, we had like 3 to 5 times we were thinking, maybe several times. Now we're hearing that it's dozens. These people were friends. They were close. They hung out. I mean, this is such a bad look. Going from no relationship at all, not, who is he, what, Epstein, to like they're buds. They go hang out when Bill's having a hard time with Melinda. Listen, I don't know about that part. What we do know is that they probably were really close. Everything we're seeing come out is saying that they're much closer than admitted. And everything we're hearing from the Bill Gates side is just the constant denial, but they've been denying everything from the get-go. So I don't put much stock in what they're saying. And one of the massive bombshells to come out of this is this part right here, where Gates apparently, far from being unaware of Epstein's whole problem with the law, actually wanted to help him rehabilitate his image in the media following his 2008 guilty plea. Sounds like a real friend there. And discussed Epstein becoming involved with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to rehab his minor for charge. Like, are you joking me? That is such a scumbag move. And by the way, plays into a lot of explanations for what we've been wondering for a very long time, because everyone is naturally wondering when they talk about, you know, Epstein and the Gates connection, because we were always told, well, they were just meeting for philanthropy. The question was, why? What is Gates, you know, this billionaire magnate with the most powerful people in the world that he knows, what does he need Epstein for? But now we might think that Epstein might have needed Gates, and Gates might have wanted to pay Epstein a favor by getting him involved in his philanthropy to rehabilitate his image. Going back to one of the earliest reports that we saw at the very beginning, we kind of can close a loose end here, which was why were they ever involved?
As an investigative reporter, why would Gates say, oh, I had no relationship with him, when of course he knows what the facts are? So that always sets off red flags for me.
That's a great question. Why did Bill repeatedly deny his involvement, relationship, underplay it? Because if it had all been truly innocent, if he had only met one time, maybe even 2 times with Jeffrey Epstein, that would be easy to admit to and move on. But if there's something more sinister here, then all of his denials and repeated, kind of downplaying of their true relationship would make sense. Now, beyond this, honestly, it just gets into conspiracy land, and I don't want to go there. I'm interested in giving you the facts where they lie right now and telling you that we've been repeatedly lied to by Bill Gates, and that this grandpa lovable philanthropist image may not be all it was said to be. And I wanted to get that to you. I can't go any further than that, but you can be sure, you could be damn sure, after being made look like a fool by Bill Gates because I defended him beforehand, and now I'm having to come out and report on this stuff, you can be sure that I'd be happy to report on news stories as they come out. I will tell you, I'll keep you in the loop. So if you're interested...
FaZe Clan has suspended 3 members and booted 1 entirely over their involvement in a shady pump and dump cryptocurrency scheme.
We've remained in contact with them, and we've asked them, like, well, I have personally asked them, yo, where's the response? Why have you guys not addressed this yet? What is going on?
Do not believe what you're hearing online.
If you don't know who Coffeezilla is, man, this dude
there he is right there.
Goes into the trenches.
The people behind this coin, at least from what it appears to be, running a standard pump and dump, is not only disgusting, but it actually makes me sick to my f***ing stomach.
Why is he listening to the influencers telling him you need to change the thing that's preventing this from being a scam to 1 minute, thereby making it a scam?
And FaZe K's not innocent, but there are a lot of other people that are guilty. That there is like some type of mastermind here. Who's the name? Tell me.
Well, this is awkward. I didn't plan on talking to you guys until my next installment on Save the Kids because this story is not over. I don't know if you guys remember how he left it, but we still don't know who the true mastermind is. But in this new video that I've been working on, I've been digging deep to unveil the truth about Save the Kids. And I think we found most of it. I teamed up with some ordinary gamers to look closely over the blockchain to find out who's truly responsible. In fact, he just uploaded a 1-hour video exposing some of what we found, but that's not even all of it. And all I want to do is tell you guys that story. right? Tell you the story of how influencers with 50 million followers could be behind a coin called Save the Kids, which did anything but, and instead scammed the fans who invested. Instead of that though, today I got something from our boy, Phase K. Sorry, X-Phase K. And after repeatedly reaching out to him for comment on the new evidence that I had found, I got this. This is a cease and desist letter from Fraser K's lawyers. Basically, they're saying, you know, we're going to sue you if you don't... Hold on, let's see here. If you do not immediately by the end of the day tomorrow at the latest publicly retract the defamatory statements and cease and desist from making other such defamatory statements in the future. Okay, well that tomorrow they're talking about is actually today, which is why I'm making this video to inform the boys at Fraser's law firm that unfortunately I'm gonna miss the deadline, boys. Because even though, of course, I don't want to get sued, this is nothing but bullying to try to get me to shut up about exposing one of the biggest crypto scams this year. And even though keeping my video up means apparently I'm getting sued for millions of dollars, they tell me, my conscience is clean. I'll happily fight this in court. And listen, I'm not going to hide behind lawyers here. Instead, I'm going to walk you through this absolute toilet paper. I'll show you the ridiculous bullying that these guys are trying to do to get me to shut up. And not only that, I'm going to let you in on a little secret opinion of mine that this lawsuit is a tactic to silence the new evidence that's coming out about Kay. He knows the kind of things that I have on him, and he knows it because I've been asking him for comment on it, and he hasn't been responding. Apparently, he's been prepping his lawyers to come at me instead. But that's going to backfire on him, because today I'll be sharing a taste of that info with you, including a brand new Phase K wallet that nobody knew about. But first, let's deal with this little legal letter here. At the risk of boring you, I'll be posting the full letter on my Twitter account if you want to see it there. But I'll just be going over the most important parts here. We are the litigation counsel for Fraser Kadrati, aka Phase K. We write to you regarding your false and defamatory public statements about Mr. Kadrati since June 2021 and demand that you immediately retract them in as public a manner as you have made them. They go on to say that I've not only defamed Fraser K, they also say I've extorted him, which was news to me. Listen to this. They say, to wit, you wrote, K, I'm serious, man. This is our DMs, by the way. I guess asking for comment is extortion now. I'm serious, man. You got to start talking. We've found so much more on you, and if you keep hiding behind these ridiculous 2-minute statements, it's never going to work. If you guys don't know, I'm referencing Phase K's response video where he didn't say sorry and instead tried to play the victim. But hold on, we'll continue here. I said, not only that, we want to take down Pepper, but you staying silent isn't helping. Okay, here I'm discussing the fact most people involved in this investigation know Pepper's involved. And we know that Kay knows that, so we're looking for that evidence. I'm just asking him, look, share that information with us. Now listen to this. They say, despite knowing that Sam Pepper was the bad actor here, not Mr. Kadrati. Okay, so apparently I'm asking for evidence on Sam Pepper being the bad guy while apparently knowing that Sam Pepper was the bad guy. And this constitutes extortion. So let me break this down for you guys at home. Asking for comment on new evidence saying, hey, because we had lost communication, he had just stopped responding to my messages. And I'm saying, look, we have new evidence. You need to respond to it. It looks terrible, right? That apparently is extortion, according to Phase K. This demonstrates your malicious intent and willingness to report false facts to comport with what you perceive to as your best interest. Again, what do I know as facts? I'm asking Phase K for the facts on Sam Pepper. And I'm being told that's extortion, but that also I knew the facts that K won't provide me? Like, what are you talking about, dude? Here's the thing that pisses me off. This whole time they're saying, like, basically I'm purposely misleading people in order to, you know, get the craziest headline possible. But if that were true, I would have just said everyone involved was equally bad. I didn't. Instead, I went through everyone's wallets that I had and said, you know, how bad I thought it was. Phase Jarvis, Phase Nikon, not as bad as Phase K, right? Phase Tico, I've publicly exonerated because I had a look at his wallet. He talked because he's innocent, and it was proven that he hadn't sold his Save the Kids token. So if what they're saying is true, and I'm looking to promote myself and your videos rather than conducting a factually supportable and careful review of the truth, as any reputable reporter would have done, I would have just thrown everyone under the bus. Instead, I pointed out the people who had a habit of pumping and dumping, and I pointed out the people who didn't. And all the while, I asked everyone for comment because, of course, in a case that is this serious, I have to ask you, is there more information of this story? They also tell me that I made, among other, attention-grabbing, false, and defamatory statements about Mr. Khadrati. Let's take a listen. Mr. Khadrati, aka K, engaged in malicious selling, is what I said. Yeah, I'd actually say that's true. I mean, what are you talking about? You sold Save the Kids, which you were an ambassador of, in 24 hours. How is that not malicious selling? You're supposed to be an ambassador of a charity token, and you sold everything in 24 hours. They also say I said he dumped all his kids' tokens immediately. Also true. But here's a good one. They also included a joke I put in my video. They said I said Phase K should be called Phase Rug, actually. Hey, that's a good joke. What I mean by that is that he not only sold Save the Kids instantly, he has a history of doing that to every or nearly every project he gets involved in. You can check it for yourself on the blockchain, boys. And it kind of just continues like that. But here's another one that's kind of important to talk about. They're apparently upset because I said it's all leading back to Phase K, which it was because Manny and Lucas, they're talking about Phase K, who himself is insisting, oh no, I didn't make any money, that he's the victim in all this. Okay, there, I'm just quoting what he told me. Again, because I asked him for comment, which I shouldn't have even done in the first place, apparently, because it's extorting Phase K. Sorry, I keep calling him Phase. Sorry, K. I'm not trying to dig that in. It's just habit. They're saying I'm extorting K by asking him for comment. So the very fact that he got to say in my video that, oh no, I didn't make any money, and that he claimed to be a victim, is because of this thing that I did, which is asking for a comment. So they conclude, we demand that you cease and desist. If you do not, Mr. Khadrati has instructed us to commence litigation against you and all those with whom you are acting in concert and or have been supplying you with false and defamatory information. Wow. Maybe some ordinary gamers, because we researched this thing together, so they might be hearing from this guy's lawyers too. Got a cease and desist, and they're saying that anybody who's helped work on this might be sued.
I mean, we'll have to take it to court, but that also means the discovery phase, and that also means whoever is really behind this and the true inner workings of Save the Kids is going to get exposed. And I have a pretty good feeling that it's not going to be good for the party that's suing.
They say, among other damages, your false statements have caused Phase to terminate Mr. Khadrati's relationship with it, and Mr. Khadrati may as a result lose millions of dollars of revenue, and that's of course what they're suing me for. See, here's the thing. Their lawsuit is saying I caused this. I'm the guy responsible for getting K removed from FaZe Clan because FaZe Clan had no involvement with our members' activity on the cryptocurrency space. But you know who actually already admitted to this? Not me. I didn't say it. FaZe K himself came out prematurely, before I even had time to make my big video, and confessed to his altcoin thing. He said himself, it was irresponsible for me to speak publicly about coins without knowing more. Look, so you're admitting what you did. You got you kicked out of FaZe Clan. You know what I mean? Like, you promoting cryptocurrencies and rugging your followers got you kicked out of FaZe Clan. I had nothing to do with it. I'm just the guy who caught you, along with my boys, some ordinary gamers, and barely sociable. Like, honestly, it's so insulting that he's implying here that FaZe Clan can't do their own investigation. Like, it's an insult to your own company that you were just kicked out of, because they suspended other people, but they kicked you out, meaning they thought what you did was worse. And that's their decision. I mean, I didn't call FaZe Clan telling them, what to do, right? They're making their own decisions based on what they want to do, and you're upset about it, and you're trying to blame me. But honestly, that's not a surprise, because Frazier failing to take responsibility for his actions seems to be a recurring theme. See, have you guys seen this video titled The Truth About Save the Kids? This was released by Frazier after a long wait. Instead of bringing evidence, he brought a 2-minute video where he never apologized and said once again that he's the victim.
I know I haven't posted in a while, and there is so much that I want to say about what's happened in the past month, but because of legal reasons, all I'm allowed to say right
legal reasons. Like suing me, I guess.
now is this. Please please do not believe what you're hearing online. All of these people making videos think that they know the truth and that they know who's responsible when they just don't.
Honestly, this thing is so embarrassing. He's saying he wants the truth out there, but he's tangled up in legal stuff while trying to tangle the people who are talking also up in legal stuff so they can't say anything. So he refuses to give any information to anyone, and he refuses to let anyone else get any information out. Otherwise, he might sue you. And I know that sounds bad, but let's give Frazier a break. He says he's found the guy responsible. There's one bad guy.
So we've uncovered significant evidence which confirms that a dishonest person abused his trust with me to scam everybody.
He's talking about Sam Pepper, but he's afraid to say his name. Now, this is a predictable but ultimately futile decision to try to blame everything on Sam Pepper. Why? Not because Sam Pepper's innocent. He's definitely not. I've known he's not. I've been asking Frazier for information to confirm that, by the way, for a long time. The reason it's stupid is because Sam Pepper and Frazier have been running around in crypto doing these scams for a very long time. And they run in a lot of the same circles. In fact, I'm about to show you one of these scams right now live. And mind you, this is 10% of what I have. I had to put this video together in one night because I have to respond to this before apparently they're going to sue or whatever. So just so you guys know, this is 10% of what we got. And this will directly contradict Frazier's little goofy theory that Sam Pepper, abused his trust and that, Kay didn't know what was going on, right? Like, how has he been involved in this stuff before? No, he's just an innocent, naive crypto investor. So let's talk about Moonpug. Moonpug was yet another scam where the developers had most of the liquidity and people got rugged pretty quick. In fact, this scam was so bad that even Sam Pepper himself felt bad about what he did to his fans. He said in a tweet, "Yesterday, I spent all day hyping up the fact I was going to promote tweet a token, and I effed up. I chose one that was pre-sale, thinking people would like that they are getting in early. But instead, this made it unfair. After it went live, people saw that devs held huge wallets. This was stupid on my part not to check this and left people feeling like the project was a scam." So this thing was so sleazy that even Sam Pepper is like, yikes. Now, with that background on Moonpug, pay attention to this avatar. That is something called a shadow people. Sam Pepper promoted these NFTs. You know who bought one of these NFTs? Take a look. FaZe K, new verified shadow people collector. And just underneath it to verify it even more, FaZe K responds with the devil emoji. Quite appropriate. Now, you guys should be familiar with the rest of this process. Using this NFT number, I just cross-check the time of sale and find out who owned it at the time. That would be this wallet right here. Now all we have to do is cross-check the BSC scan, go to the BEP20 token section, and boom. See, he participated in Moonpug. He got money from the deployer wallet, meaning he was involved before the public could be. And what did this guy do when he got loaded up with tons of Moonpug? Well, he dumped it as fast as he possibly could. In a little over 4 hours, this guy got rid of all his Moonpug, which means that if we go to the day of launch, we can watch as Frazier dumps his coins. Here's the start of the sale. He gets in early. It pumps really high. He sells off hour 2, hour 3, hour 4. And by this hour, he's out. Now remember that as we zoom out, this guy got in around here, sold all the way here, is completely out of the coin, and of course, everyone gets wiped out. And the truth is, the amount of money he made wasn't trivial. I went transaction by transaction, finding how much money he made each time. He kept trading for 10 wrapped BNB with a total of 20 out transactions. That means he made about 200 BNB, which at a BNB price of $523 means he made about $100,000 off of selling this Moonpug in the first few hours. This is why I'm so sick of Frazier claiming to be naive. Naive people don't know how to rug a coin. Naive people usually don't have multiple wallets. And naive people sure as hell don't know how to make $100,000 from a pre-sale of a shitcoin. So in conclusion, I want to close this by saying that in my opinion, okay, you are a self-serving hypocrite. You claim in your response video that you just want to help people and get to the bottom of this.
And one way I can pay that forward is by making sure that this con man gets the justice that he deserves.
But that isn't true, is it? In reality, you're trying to sue people who are investigating this whole thing, all the while claiming you're going to do your own investigation.
We're conducting a very thorough, independent, and aggressive investigation.
How could it be independent? You're like one of the main guys. Yo, I know I was accused of this, but I'm going to investigate it independently. What? And how's it aggressive? You didn't do anything until we made videos about it and you got in trouble. And look, I get it. You're upset. You got caught and now you're trying to use your vast resources to shut up the people who are looking into what you've done. And meanwhile, you're not responding to comment. And if anyone asks for comment, you say they're extorting you. But in my opinion, the people you're really betraying here is not me. It's your fans, right? Like the least you could do is apologize to them for what you've done. And you haven't done that, right? Like not once during this thing does Kay apologize. He doesn't say sorry. Instead, he throws Sam Pepper under the bus, which I'm not saying Sam Pepper's innocent. He even could be the mastermind. As I said a week ago, we don't know, right? I'm looking into it. I'm asking everybody. But let's not pretend that Kay and Sam haven't been involved in the crypto game for a while now. So I'm going to close this video by addressing Kay, I guess. Look, no puny lawsuit threat is going to make me stop investigating, getting to the truth of this. And the reason for that is because I know all you have is money. You have piles and piles of money. No one's disputing that. Clearly, we just, but what you don't have is the truth. Because if you did have that, you'd be standing up loudly, talking to anyone who would listen. Instead, anyone who asks you questions is apparently extorting. Alex Mashinsky, creator of a multi-billion-dollar fraud known as Celsius, has been arrested. I can't express how big of a deal this is, not just for this channel, which has been covering this for over a year, but mostly for the victims. Here's what some of them said about this fraud only a few months ago.
So this was an absolute fraud from the beginning. I mean, it turns out that a lot of these businesses that they claimed to be propping up Celsius were completely fraudulent. From what I've seen from the Examiner, more and more it looks like it was just a textbook case of a Ponzi scheme.
I don't care if it was a Ponzi scheme from the very beginning or the very end. It still was a Ponzi scheme.
It doesn't matter if he meant to start a Ponzi scheme, right? But the second you got into those circumstances, it becomes fraud.
They're basically losing money from the very start of the company, and they're literally lying in front of everyone's faces saying, yeah, oh, it's totally fine. Yeah, you could totally keep our money in here. Yeah, I would totally invest more if I could. As they're currently at that same time withdrawing funds as they're literally on camera lying to everyone's faces.
He made a lot of egregious claims on his Twitter, on his website, on his podcasts he would do, claiming if Celsius ever went bankrupt, all the customers would get all of their funds back. There's tweets of him saying that. And as a CEO of a company, you would take that word at face value. You would believe him when he says your coins are going to come back to you. And now that everything is coming to light and showing that essentially what he was running is a Ponzi, I do believe he should face jail time, and the people that were also involved with it that were enabling that behavior.
Well, it looks like that's exactly what's happening. Alex Mashinsky is facing serious prison time. So let's get into the meat of these allegations. Today, the DOJ, SEC, CFTC, and FTC all released indictments against Alex Mashinsky. Celsius itself was fined $4.7 billion, and 7 criminal charges were alleged against Alex Mashinsky himself, including securities fraud, wire fraud, and market manipulation. Now, in total, Mashinsky faces up to 115 years as a max sentence, but of course, the sentence will likely be much lower. Even so, though, Mashinsky is 57 years old, so there's a chance he will be in prison for the rest of his life because of Celsius. And it's not just him being charged either. Roni Cohen-Pavan, the chief revenue officer at Celsius, is also facing criminal charges. And the reasons for that aren't surprising. As we've stated over and over and over, Celsius had been secretly using customer deposits for years to buy their own stupid Cell token and make the price go up, which benefited insiders like Alex Mashinsky and Roni Cohen-Pavan, who sold their Cell tokens and became very rich. $42 million for Alex and $3.6 million for the lawyer. And most of that money was the direct result of lying to their end customer. Over and over, they lied to cover up the fact that they were the main buyers of Cell token and main sellers. They lied about their ICO, making $50 million. They lied about giving 80% of their revenues back to Celsius customers. They lied about Alex Mashinsky not selling Cell Token. They lied about Celsius being profitable when they knew they were bleeding cash. And look, I could go on, but there are 71 mentions of the word false in this report, so we'd be here all day. The point is this: Alex Mashinsky and his co-conspirators lied in order to get more people to deposit money while they cashed out this Cell Token. They knew they were insolvent, they knew their business wasn't working, and still they continued to pretend it was. They promoted this Ponzi scheme built on unrealistic returns, and when it all crashed, they made sure their money was out. And for those of you who've been watching this channel over the last year, this won't come as a surprise. As I said, we've been covering a lot of these allegations, but I also want to be clear that some people have been calling out Celsius even before we did. A fellow investigator, Dirty Bubble Media, has been calling out Celsius for months before anyone else knew they were insolvent. And I wanted to speak to him to ask how he knew so early and what we can learn from it and what this indictment means.
My name is James Block. I write Dirty Bubble Media, a blog focused on fraud in the cryptocurrency space. To be quite honest, I thought that Celsius was a fraud very early in my encounters with it, within a few days of actually learning about the project. And really what clued me into it was learning about its founder and CEO, Alex Mashinsky's history. He made a lot of big claims about his past successes, the companies he had founded, and what I found pretty quickly was that he had lied or at least grossly exaggerated pretty much everything that he told people about what he had done before founding Celsius. And in my experience, when someone lies that much and that often, they don't stop lying.
What does this indictment represent to you?
This indictment's a vindication for me, really. It kind of confirms what we knew for a long time. And, I expected this to happen. I don't know if it took longer than I expected, but it took a year to the day of them filing for bankruptcy for them to charge him with fraud.
Thanks for coming on. I think you helped a lot of people. I, for one, am just grateful that the victims are finally seeing some form of justice in this and that outright crimes are being treated as such. And so it's with great pleasure that I want to wrap up today's show in a bit of a unique way. Today, I'm announcing the addition of Alex Mashinsky to the Wall of Shame. As you guys know, when you appear on this show and then face charges, we will name you and we will shame you. Guys, I have a bit of an announcement to make right now, okay? This is a bit of an announcement. If you are watching Coffee Break videos, be aware that Dan Lok is watching. He's watching you like a hawk. Dan Lok likes to say that his haters spend all their time thinking about him.
I noticed a lot of the haters, most of the time, they are the nameless, faceless, right? Yeah. Where they hide behind the computers, they talk shit, they made up shit. That's just what they do. They spend so much time, because you can see it takes effort.
Yeah, let's talk about effort, Dan. Let's talk about those keyboard warriors. Because Dan Lok actually has been spending a lot more time on us than we've been spending on him. In fact, he has a dedicated, either he himself does this or he has dedicated staff reading all our comments on our videos, and he actually bans everyone who comments positively about Coffeezilla. Here, check this out. Look, this is a message I got from one of Dan's students. He received a community ban with the offending comment right here, community ban, because look at this. Check this out, dude. This is crazy. It has come to our attention that you made comments in support of a defamatory content regarding our brand. This is against community rules. For this reason, you have been banned from this program and future programs with Dan Lok. That's something he paid for. That's something this guy paid for, and he got banned from it because he committed the sin of talking bad about Sifu. Look, guys, you don't talk bad about Sifu, okay? You don't even think bad about Sifu. Sifu knows. You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not make bad comments about HTC. I'm telling you why. Dan Lok is watching. He's watching everything you do. He knows if you've been naughty or nice. Look at this. Look at this. Hi, Dylan. Different guy. Okay? He's watching everything.
Dan Lok is watching you guys as you support the channel, as you support everyone, knowing about the two Dans of the world, as you support, real testimonials coming out. People like Dylan are getting banned for supporting this. Look at this. Look at this. Hi, Dylan. This is a courtesy message, and they linked his what he said. Here's another guy. Here is another guy. They said what he did wrong. Look, all this guy said was Coffeezilla is woke. He didn't even say that Dan Lok is bad. He said Coffeezilla is woke. And by the way, guys, I'm very woke. I'm about as awake as it gets, guys. And what I'm awake to is that Dan Lok is feeling pressure. He's feeling under the gun. So don't comment on my videos if you are a student of Dan until we figure out some better, until he stops reading all my comments, because you'll get banned, and I don't want you to get banned. Anyway, it's gotten pretty bad out there. Be careful, you guys. You're being watched.
What up, boys? I'm back early, a day early, because I'm pissed. I got to make this video real quick. Regular videos start tomorrow. Expect that. But I got to talk about this. SEC hunts for fraud in social media posts hyping GameStop, a.k.a. you post on Wall Street Bets. Be careful. It's time. The SEC's coming after you. Expect some jail time, baby. And, we got to talk about this because it flies in the face of what the SEC should be doing here. They've got limited manpower. Okay, I get it. They got limited time. So why are you going to spend your time looking at a bunch of brain-dead Redditors? No offense. I'm one of you, okay? Relax. When you could be looking at these billionaire hedge funds who've managed to just escape away, or they're trying to, with the help of people like Robinhood, who's restricting trades. Meanwhile, in the exact same article where they announced, quote, Securities and Exchange Commission investigators are combing social media and exchange message boards posts for signs that fraud played a role in the dizzying stock swings for GameStop, according to people familiar with the matter. Okay, nice little anonymous thing. In that same exact breath that they're saying, hey guys, we're getting the magnifying glass, Wall Street Bets, we're coming for you. In the same breath that they're coming after a bunch of Redditors, they are apparently talking to a former SEC counsel who says, oh yeah, what Robinhood did, definitely not illegal. We've already thought about it. Not illegal.
Tom, what do you make of Robinhood actions here? Because they're now facing lawsuits. Did Robinhood do anything illegal here or fraudulent?
Probably not. Certainly not by restriction.
Look at the astroturfing campaign going on before your very eyes. Let me be clear about what they're saying. You're the bad guy. Hey, you trader at home, with your $600 your stimulus check, you're the bad guy. You've committed a crime. You may have committed a crime. The SEC is looking into you. They're taking a very careful look at you. Meanwhile, these scumbags at Robinhood, who he says, oh, it wasn't our fault. Oh, it was the clearinghouse. Okay, well, did the clearinghouse do anything wrong? Oh, no, it wasn't them. No conspiracy. The guy calls it a conspiracy, the Robinhood guy. Look at this. This is when Elon Musk was talking with the CEO of Robinhood.
You have a strong say in who got put in charge of that organization, since it's an industry consortium, not a government consortium, or not a government regulatory agency?
I don't have any reason to believe that. I think that's just then you're getting into kind of the conspiracy theories a little bit. So I just have no reason to believe that that's the case, Yeah,
guys, listen, hey, look, don't get into conspiracy theories. What are you saying? Something fishy happened? Oh, SEC's not going to look into it, guys. The SEC's spending their time looking into you guys over on Wall Street Bets, baby. These guys, you guys over here are criminals. Look at you. Look at you. 8.5 million criminals. We're going to change that. Good luck. I mean, I'm subscribed too, so I may be in trouble myself. But let's just remember, right? Let's just remember what happened. You guys remember in 2008 when only one banker went to jail? This is that all over again. You guys remember when Pogo in 2013, Project on Government Oversight, released the thing about how the SEC has risk of regulatory capture? In other words, they're owned by the people that they're supposed to be regulating. In other words, if they ever were faced with a series of fraud, they couldn't investigate it because the people who control them are the very people they should be investigating. Oh yeah, but guys, don't look into this. This is a big conspiracy, la la land, fun times. It's just yet another story that when big hedge fund managers manipulate the market, it's just them doing their job. But when Wall Street Bets gets a hold of the fact that a stock is shorted over 100% and they take advantage of it, well, you guys may have broken the law, guys. You guys are being investigated. Let's not forget that we have hedge fund managers on record, like Jim Cramer, admitting that they would do illegal things. Guys, they would do illegal things, and they still were not investigated. Why? Well, the SEC doesn't understand it.
I hit a lot of guys with RIM. Now, you can't ferment. That's a violation of ferment. Yeah, you can't foment. You can't create yourself an impression that a stock's down.
This is Jim Cramer, back in the day, talking about what he would do as a hedge fund manager. He's basically saying you can't manipulate the market, but then listen to what he says.
But you do it anyway because the SEC doesn't understand it. So you...
Oh, wait, what was that again? Hold on. Sorry, Jim. Go back.
That a stock's down. But you do it anyway because the SEC doesn't understand it.
You do it anyway because the SEC doesn't understand it. They don't understand it or they don't want to understand it because they're too busy looking around for a bunch of people at home with their stimulus checks and investigating them rather than investigating the hedge funds, the broker houses, everybody who magically seems to be lining up all the dominoes in order to screw you and benefit the billionaires. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Throwback Thursday, where we investigate the con men from old to learn lessons for our modern era. Today, we're taking a look at the grandpappy of Ponzi schemes, Bernie Madoff. He ran a $64.8 billion scheme before it was discovered in 2008 by himself. He turned himself in. That's probably the first shocking thing you need to know about Bernie Madoff, is that his Ponzi scheme was trucking along until the financial market collapsed in 2008 and everyone came looking for their money. Now, if you understand how a Ponzi scheme works, where you're constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul, you're not actually investing the money, you understand why this is a problem. He simply didn't have it. He didn't have those magical 1% per month returns that he had been promising people for years. That while the S&P 500 was going up and down with the market, they could trust him with their finances. And why not? After all, he was the former chairman of the NASDAQ. He was a well-known market maker. He was known within Wall Street. He was royalty. And so people just trusted him. He didn't go looking for investors. They came to him. His investment advisory was, quite frankly, one of the most elite clubs to be in. You had to know somebody who knew Bernie to get into his Ponzi scheme. So at first, hearing all these things, you may be envisioning some brilliant, genius con men who simply outsmarted the feds, outsmarted the authorities, who were just befuddled by how this could be right up until the very end. But you'd be wrong. See, Bernie didn't evade suspicion. In fact, almost his entire career, he was being investigated by the SEC or other regulatory agencies. So the real question is not how did a bunch of people fall for a Ponzi scheme, but how did we let it happen? My theory, Bernie made a big bluff.
And this is something that the public really doesn't understand. And if you read things in the newspaper and you see somebody, violate a rule, you say, well, they're always doing this. But it's impossible for you to for a violation to go undetected.
Now, obviously, we know what he just said is incredibly ironic, but it's also factually untrue. He literally got away with his Ponzi scheme for several decades. But this wasn't because Bernie Madoff was some genius fraudster. In fact, I want to share with you 3 examples from when Bernie Madoff almost got caught. He was always, it seems, almost getting caught, to illustrate to you the absolute incompetence we were dealing with the SEC. My first example, the 1992 investigation. According to a report into the SEC's failure to catch Madoff, in June of 1992, several customers of an investment firm known as Avellino and Bynes approached the SEC conveying concerns about investments they had made. The SEC was provided with several documents that indicated that they were offering 100% safe investments. Now, what did the SEC suspect that this company was doing when they heard about high and extremely consistent rates of return? Well, they suspected them of operating a Ponzi scheme, but later realized that Bernie Madoff, had taken complete control over their customers. Now, what does the SEC do? They suspect this company, this investment company that's selling these high consistent returns, of running a Ponzi scheme. They find out that Madoff manages all their funds. So what do? Well, they shut down this company, which they suspect of being a Ponzi scheme. But do they investigate Madoff for being a Ponzi scheme? No. In fact, in a Wall Street Journal article from 1992, this is written about how basically there was a mystery investor. It says the mystery broker turned out to be none other than Bernard Madoff, a highly successful and controversial figure on Wall Street. In a stroke of what could be described as unfortunate irony, it says in the article, regulators feared it might all just be a huge scam. This is 16 years before the Ponzi falls apart. We went into it thinking it could be a major catastrophe, says Richard Walker, the SEC's New York regional administrator. Really? You thought it could be a scam? No. It was a scam. You just didn't look. So that's exhibit 1 of the SEC's enormous incompetence. But now I want to draw you to the refrigerator. This is much later in the fraud. So apparently KPMG was looking for a document that they had not known was going to be asked for. So this guy testifies, now I have a big problem. These guys are looking for non-existent records, right? Because they're not a real trading company. Normally you could provide this, but they don't actually trade their Ponzi scheme. And so this is how haphazard the Madoff organization was at this point. He calls downstairs to 2 of the guys down there and says, hey, bring me up such and such report. I need it in 10 minutes. Knowing that this report, it doesn't exist. So the guys downstairs, they have to make it up literally from scratch. And they know that, it's going to be hot. You know, this is supposed to be a well-worn report. It's good, but it's going to be hot. It's supposed to be from years ago. It doesn't exist. So they put it in the refrigerator to cool it down because the guys are right upstairs. They need to bring it up. And then they toss it around like, quote, a medicine ball. Picture that. These guys tossing around a newly created fraudulent document like a medicine ball so it would seem like it's worn. And they bring it upstairs and present it. And nobody is the wiser. Now, is that the story of some brilliant, fraudster? No. That's a guy who can barely get it together. That's an organization that is on the brink of falling apart. And yet, once again, they live to fight another day. Up till now, nobody's really seriously looked into the Bernie Madoff fraud possibility until one man named Harry Markopolos appears on the scene. According to him, he looked at Bernie Madoff's books, and in 5 minutes, he knew the whole thing was a fraud. In 4 hours, a Ponzi scheme.
And Harry said, this is a fraud. And then 4 hours later, he says, this is a Ponzi scheme.
So what do you do if you're Harry Markopolos and you realize that one of the largest hedge fund managers on Wall Street is actually a fraudster? Well, you take it to the SEC, of course. And they ignored him. Why did they ignore him, you ask? That's a great question. See, obviously the OIG investigated the SEC. Everyone's investigating, themselves, investigating, did no wrong. And the reason they didn't take Harry Markopolos' claim seriously is because how could Bernie Madoff be a Ponzi scheme if he was trading in Europe? That's why they dismissed Harry Markopolos. He showed them mathematically that it was impossible to do what Bernie Madoff was doing. And they said Mr. Markopolos did not know that the trades were done in Europe. So they dismissed him. Now, did Bernie Madoff trade in Europe? Apparently, as the story goes, Madoff had his office set up in such a way that whenever investigators asked to see evidence of this trading, one trader would sit at the desk showing that they're trading with Europe, while the guy down the hall would execute the European side of the trade. So they literally had it set up in such a way that 2 guys are in the same building just sweating, I imagine, hoping that these regulators will simply go away. So the SEC sees that and goes, oh, I guess that's legit. And at that point, you have to wonder, what are they going to find? Well, nothing. Time after time, the SEC bungles the case. They just slips out of their hands. At one point, they have this thing where they're going to seek records from something called the Depository Trust Company, which is an independent third party. And they ask Madoff for his account number, whatever. He gives it to them. And he says at that point, Monday morning, they'll call the DTC and it'll be over. Basically, he goes, my time is up. He knew it. Except that never happened. Why? Because they never called the place to verify the trades. Literally at every corner, the SEC is just falling over themselves to miss the largest Ponzi scheme in human history. And the question is, again, how? I have a few answers at my disposal here, and I'm going to give you my own answer as well. One is what Harry Markopolos believed. He said, I believe that the one overarching deficiency is that the SEC is a group of 3,500 chickens tasked to track down and catch foxes, which are way faster, stronger, and smarter than they are. The SEC itself says that they think that the teams assembled to investigate Madoff were, quote, inexperienced and there was insufficient planning for the examinations. Now, those are good theories. Harry Markopolos also says that he thinks that the SEC has too big of a conflict of interest with Wall Street and with Madoff, and that's maybe one of the reasons why. And I think that's possible, but I think there's something else going on here too. See, with someone like Bernie Madoff, you have an emperor has no clothes problem, where someone is so powerful, someone is so experienced and well known within their industry that it becomes almost unfathomable that they will be caught. And I think that Bernie's big bluff was not to go ahead and make the most sophisticated financial con in human history. It was that I think he knew that if he dressed the part, he looked the part, and played the part well enough, nobody would bother looking. After all, how could you fathom that the guy who's saying this,
when this is something that the public really doesn't understand, and if you read things in the newspaper and you see somebody violate a rule, you say, well, they're always doing this. But it's impossible for you to go for a violation to go undetected.
how could that be the guy running the biggest Ponzi scheme in human history? Can't be him. He's that nice, well-spoken guy who Uncle Bernie. He would do no harm. I think it was the sheer audacity of what he did that led so many people to simply sweep it under the rug, to not look too carefully. The people who suspected him, they even suspected him of a different crime entirely. They thought maybe he was front-running trades, right? Which is illegal, but the profits are real. They thought maybe he's committing a little bit of fraud, but not that much fraud. Nobody thought about a Ponzi scheme because, quite simply, it was outside the realm of possibility. That is what made Bernie's bluff so effective. So nobody looked into it. Nobody except someone looking at the numbers. Harry Markopolos was one of the few people to not only suspect Bernie Madoff, but also accuse him of running a Ponzi scheme before it all collapsed in 2008. And I think the lesson we can learn from this is to not simply look at the outside appearance of somebody just because they have a Lambo, just because they have a suit, just because they have, quote, millions of dollars, or even if they are respected by their peers or they appear to have connections. This does not preclude them from all sorts of insane behavior that we can't explain later on. I mean, it's all well and good to say that someone's a psychopath after the fact, but nobody was accusing Bernie of being a psychopath before the fact. Nobody knew it. And the only way you could have known at the time that Bernie was actually committing the fraud that he was not giving him the benefit of the doubt. And that is one of the craziest things to swallow. Because once you realize the most well-dressed, well-adjusted, wealthy people in the world can be psychopaths and you don't even know, that's a scary thought. So guys, I'd like to end this video on an upside. Justice was served in the end. The 3,500 chickens Harry Markopolos talked about eventually came home to roost. But when we talk about con men from the past, normally they're met with disdain, disgust. There's a sense that all these people need to be put behind bars. But every now and then a scammer comes along who really captures the imagination, who shows us the foolishness of our biases and how easy it is to trick us, and it almost delights us in a weird way. One such example is Frank Abagnale. He was the guy featured in Catch Me If You Can, the movie, and the whole idea is that he spent his life sort of faking being an airline pilot, an attorney, a doctor, but he did it in such a way that seemed perhaps to not be for money, but for the sheer thrill of getting away with it. And because of that, he's become something of an icon and even has moved on from his scammer ways into something more respectable. And that latter type of scammer is what I'm interested in today. Because the person we're talking about today is a scammer, yes. But he also, when I review his files, I can't help but find myself fascinated by this person. Fascinated by the doctor of love.
But the teen later told police he'd never attended medical school.
I don't appreciate your tone. If you could stop recording, please. I will lie like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the $10 million studio. I'm your host, Coffeezilla, and today we're talking about the man, myth, the legend, the doctor of love himself, Malachi Love Robinson. Dodge that. This is him right here, guys. You may know him, you may not, but he was featured on the local news a while back as a young con man. Let's take a listen.
An alleged fraud of such audacity, such tenacity that it boggles the mind. It involves an 18-year-old baby-faced kid who's accused of masquerading as a doctor. Police say treating patients out of his own clinic.
That's right. Dr. Malachi Love Robinson, or Dr. Love, as we'll be calling him throughout the rest of this piece, was a 19-year-old kid who faked being a doctor and set up a private practice and was treating patients.
He has a lab coat and a stethoscope. What's that? But police say this baby-faced physician doesn't have an MD.
Are you a fraud? Because it seems like everything you're saying to me is evasive.
I don't appreciate your tone.
Gosh, I love that. You get caught and you go, I don't appreciate your tone, actually. I don't like when you say that. But let's set the stage, okay? Let's back it up before we get into the heated confrontation. Dr. Love didn't start by being confronted on being a doctor. He actually had practice. He had dreams of being a doctor for a fake doctor. Dreams of being a fake doctor for a long time. Ever since he was 17, he sort of roamed the halls, it sounds like, of various medical places, pretending and just sort of like walking around with a lab coat on.
The police report says he was walking around the halls in a doctor's coat.
I believe it said Department of Anesthesiology on it.
Witnesses reporting he'd been roaming the hospital halls for a month.
Dude, how does anybody mistake this guy for a doctor? I like the serious expression though. Dude, this guy's committed to the character.
This story was broadcast everywhere. Like I'm some insane maniac.
Well, nobody else is faking being a doctor. At least we can say you're a one of one. That's one thing you'll notice actually about Malachi is that he has a tremendous amount of confidence that belies his young teenage years. And that's something that I find fascinating. I think most people find fascinating about scammers is they typically have an above average ability to BS their way through situations that they have no idea about. I'm sure Malachi has never been on the local news before, or definitely not the national news before, but he BS's his way through it like a pro.
Didn't snatch out a baby. I didn't do any of that.
Police snapped this picture of the lab coat in his car. On one lapel, the title anesthesiologist. On the other, his name.
Oh, that's a bad luck, bud. That's where you get in trouble. I think probably if he had walked through with just a lab coat, he probably wouldn't have gotten in trouble. But now that you fake your credentials, that's the problem.
The hospital did not press charges, claiming in a statement the individual never had contact with any hospital patients and did not gain access to any patient care areas.
Now, by the way, I'll be skipping through this because there's a full report on this. Great investigative reporting by ABC News. You can go check it out. It's called Florida Teen Accused of Posing as a Doctor Denies Diagnosing Patients. I want to skip to the part where they actually go into his clinic where he was... his private practice and show you what he was doing. This kid is unbelievable.
Attempting to pass as a medical doctor, this time in his very own clinic.
This is the New Birthing Life Medical Center.
So he doesn't know that this girl walking with him is an undercover reporter.
Labor law posters up on the wall. So that way, they are visible to the public. Law, right?
Dude, what? Oh my gosh, he goes, hey, look, labor laws, that means I'm legit.
So that way, they are visible to the public.
And she goes, you're following the law, as she knows that he's faking being a doctor, and he thinks he's getting away with this. That's unbelievable.
All right.
Of course, that was after he removed his lab coat and stethoscope. And when you peel back the tape, the sign on the door has his name and those two crucial letters.
No, Dr. Love, no. You got to learn, bud. Now, this case gets more serious when we learn of accusations that Dr. Love was not merely playing doctor, he was actually acting as a doctor and treating patients for money. He was immediately confronted on this.
86-year-old woman. Police say he treated her recently for severe stomach pain and charged her nearly $3,500.
What services did you provide in exchange for that money?
I can tell you this. Accusations are merely accusations.
Hey, dude, don't ever start a question with another, like a statement that has nothing to do with the question. I'm sure that's how Brian Rose answers any kind of questions. Accusations are just accusations.
And services, you'd have to define that. Whether she paid for me to just show up, that's up to her.
What? This kid is unreal. He's a legend. He never defeated at the BS game. He's saying I didn't even give her services. She paid me $3,500 to show up. She was so happy to see my face.
Denying the fact that she paid you $3,500 or so, correct?
No, I am denying that.
Are you a fraud?
I don't appreciate your tone. I don't appreciate the way you're portraying this interview to actually be.
And then a moment we didn't expect.
I don't know where you're receiving this information from, but it is inaccurate. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cut this interview short.
Wow, that is unbelievable. Look at that, his outrage about getting called out truthfully. Dude, he's 19. The kid could be a Hollywood star actor. This is such a power play. I don't even know what to think of this.
I don't know where you're receiving this information from, but it is inaccurate. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cut this interview short.
But he has said this may not cut his medical career short, saying he hopes to open another.
Look at that. He hits him with this kid's a star, dude. Normally, people would be walking out with their head ducked, like low. This kid is going like, you'll be hearing from my lawyers, dude. So here's the thing. He goes to jail for this. Now, he gets talked to in jail. He served like a 3-year stint. He really gave a compelling message to Inside Edition here.
Behind that deception.
As a kid, I think it's always been my dream, to be a physician. I guess the bigger picture was seeing the smiles, people thinking that you are something that you're not.
He sounds pretty compelling, huh? Like he really is remorseful for what he did and that he really just deep down wanted to be a doctor all along. Well, he got out recently, and unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, he is once again in the news. Dr. Love is rearrested in Palm Beach County. I regret to inform you guys.
In January 2020, according to the police, under the name Alex Robinson, he got a job with United States of Freight, a shipping brokerage based in Delray Beach. Delray police say he stole more than $10,000 from the company by diverting payments to the company into his own bank account.
Now, this is the problem with scammers of all kinds. Because once you scam by pretending to be a quack, you can never go back. It's an old saying. And this is unfortunately the sad part of scamming is I think for some people, it's just a disease. They can't help it. They're pathological liars. But for me, at least, Dr. Love represents one of the most interesting figures in scamming. Not because what I think he did was right. I think it's incredibly dangerous to fake being a doctor. But because his motivations were so different than your average guru. It wasn't to get a Lambo. It wasn't to teach a bunch of 15-year-olds how to dropship. For him, it was about being seen like he was in a position of authority and he was helping you, regardless of whether he could actually help you or not. And I think the fact that he's convinced and tricked so many people along the way is a testament to our human fragility when it comes to trust. We're so quick to trust other people if they have the right thing on, if they have the right coat on. It's an old saying that if you put a construction outfit on and you carry a clipboard, you can get into any job site in the world. And unfortunately, examples like this are